All right, so today we're going way back in time for this deep dive. We're going to be looking at The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and everybody knows this book. It's like the classic military strategy text, but it's really interesting how much of it still applies today, even in the 21st century.
Absolutely. And, I think part of that is that Sun Tzu wasn't really just writing about winning battles.
Right.
He was exploring the core principles of conflict.
Yeah, and that's what we're after here.
Yeah.
We want to pull those timeless principles out of The Art of War and see if they apply to like your modern day challenges.
I like that.
And I got to admit, I found some surprising stuff. Like some of the stuff in there is kind of mind-blowing.
I bet. It's very counterintuitive, a lot of it.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So, okay, to kick things off, Sun Tzu lays out these 5 constant factors, and he says they basically determine success in any kind of conflict.
Okay.
He calls them moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, and method, and discipline.
So pretty philosophical.
That sounds pretty philosophical, right? But Sun Tzu was a pragmatist at heart.
Yeah.
If you think about moral law, for example,
Yeah.
it's all about your team being aligned and believing in the mission.
Yeah.
How many times have we seen companies fail because their employees just weren't feeling it?
Yeah. They're not bought in.
They weren't bought in.
Totally.
And Sun Tzu knew that even way back then, getting your team on board, that's half the battle won right there.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that he brings up heaven and earth, too,
Oh, yeah.
which represent understanding the environment, the external factors.
Yeah, it's like knowing the right timing, picking the right battlefield, even factoring in the weather. It's not just about charging in blindly.
No, it's calculated.
It's calculated.
You wouldn't start a business without doing some market analysis, right?
Right.
Same principle.
Yeah. And then there's the commander, which is obviously the leader.
Right.
Strong leadership is key.
Right.
But Sun Tzu takes that idea even further.
Yeah.
What does he say about that?
I think we'll get into that more later. But for now, just think about someone who's wise, who is disciplined, who genuinely cares for the people that they lead.
So it's more than just like giving orders.
Yeah, much more.
Okay.
And then finally, there's method and discipline, which is about, having your act together. The organization, the logistics, all the nitty-gritty details that actually make things happen.
It's like having a great plan, but no operations team to actually execute it.
Exactly.
It's just going to fall apart.
It all falls apart.
So you've got your team aligned.
Yeah.
You understand the landscape. You've got strong leadership. And you're organizing plan. Sun Tzu seems to be saying that these factors are actually even more important than having a bigger army or better weapons.
Absolutely. It's strategic thinking. It's assessing all these elements before you make your move.
I see.
He actually says, he who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail.
Wow, that's a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
People think of The Art of War. I think they think of this very aggressive, conquer at all costs type of book. But Sun Tzu actually emphasizes speed and efficiency.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting that he says prolonged warfare actually hurts everyone involved.
He paints this picture of daily expenses, draining resources, weapons becoming dull, morale plummeting.
Wow.
He understood that the longer a conflict drags on, the weaker both sides become.
Yeah, even if you're winning, you're still losing something in the process.
Absolutely.
It's like those legal battles that go on forever and ever.
Yeah.
Both sides are spending a fortune in legal fees, even if one side technically wins in the end.
Right.
Everyone's exhausted by the end, and nobody truly feels like a winner.
Right. Nobody comes out on top, really.
Yeah, and this concept applies way beyond like literal warfare.
Oh, yeah.
Think about those drawn-out arguments in your business or your personal life.
Absolutely.
Just as draining, right?
It's too draining.
Okay, this is where things got really interesting for me. Sun Tzu actually advocates for achieving victory without fighting.
Interesting.
That's kind of a counterintuitive idea, isn't it?
It does seem paradoxical at first, but I think it really gets to the heart of Sun Tzu's thinking. What's the point of just crushing your opponent if you can achieve your objective without destroying their resources?
Yeah, it's like winning a negotiation where both sides walk away feeling like they got a good deal.
Yeah.
Nobody's ego is bruised, and you can potentially work together again in the future.
That's it.
So how do you achieve this victory without fighting? What does Sun Tzu say?
Well, he talks about things like outmaneuvering, disrupting their plans, undermining alliances.
Wow.
And he considers those to be higher forms of generalship than just brute force.
I see.
Like he uses the example of capturing a city intact being preferable to destroying it.
Oh, wow.
You can really see how that's relevant to business, to personal life, to negotiation and conflict resolution.
Yeah, it's almost like he's saying the true victory is in preserving, not destroying.
I like that.
which, when you think about it, is a pretty profound idea, especially coming from a military strategist.
It is, and that kind of leads into another fascinating aspect of the art of war, the role of deception and adaptability.
Okay.
Sun Tzu famously says, all warfare is based on deception.
Oh, well. So it's not just about being clever. It's about being unpredictable, keeping your opponent guessing.
Exactly. He stresses the need for flexibility to constantly adjust your plans based on the situation, which is always changing.
So you wouldn't use the same sales tactics on every single customer.
Of course not.
You'd adapt your approach based on their personality, their needs.
You gotta read the room.
Right. So it's not about sticking rigidly to the plan, but about adapting to the terrain, so to speak, of the situation.
Absolutely. And he actually compares a skillful army to water flowing around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance.
I love that analogy. It's so
For sure.
simple, yet so powerful. And it really gets to the heart of what Sun Tzu's saying about adaptability. But to adapt effectively, you need information.
Yeah.
You need to know what those obstacles are, where those paths of least resistance lie.
Right.
And that brings us to the final and perhaps most intriguing section of the art of war, the role of spies. Espionage, intelligence gathering.
Even in Sun Tzu's time, that was a crucial aspect of conflict.
Yeah, he outlines 5 different types of spies. Local, inward, converted, doomed, surviving.
Wow.
Each one serving a different purpose and giving these unique insights into the enemy's plans and their movements.
So he's got it all laid out.
Oh, yeah. He gets super specific. He gives all these instructions on how to recruit them, manage them, extract information from them. It's really fascinating stuff. But what's so important here is the underlying principle, the need for accurate and timely information.
Yeah.
Sun Tzu says, knowledge of the enemy's dispositions can only be obtained from other men.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's powerful. It makes you think about the importance of information in any kind of strategic endeavor.
Totally.
Whether you're running a business, negotiating a deal, or just trying to understand your partner, better good intel is crucial.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're not advocating for literal espionage in your daily life,
Yeah.
but think about how this principle applies to your own goals. What are the battlefields in your life? Where do you need to be gathering intel to make those smart decisions?
That's a good question. It's amazing how a text this old can still be so relevant today.
Yeah.
It's a mark of true wisdom. The ability to identify these timeless principles that transcend specific circumstances, and the art of war is chock full of them.
Yeah, we've only just scratched the surface here, so we need to take a moment to let all of this sink in. We'll be back in a moment to continue our deep dive into the art of war.
Sounds good.
Okay, welcome back. I'm still kind of buzzing from that last section,
Oh, yeah.
especially that part about winning without fighting. That was just such a powerful concept.
Absolutely.
But now I'm really curious to dig into some of the more specific tactics that Sun Tzu lays out.
Yeah, let's get tactical.
Yeah, but some of them are pretty surprising. Like Sun Tzu wasn't afraid to think outside the box.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, when I was reading through the excerpts, I was like, whoa. I mean, take his ideas on deception, for example. He literally says all warfare is based on deception. That's a pretty huge statement coming from a military strategist.
It is, but think about it. How often do we make decisions based on incomplete or misleading information?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Sun Tzu understood the power of perception, of making your opponent misjudge your intentions and your capabilities.
So it's not just about being sneaky. It's about, like, shaping the narrative, controlling the information that your opponent has access to.
Exactly. He talks about appearing weak when you're strong and vice versa, creating a smokescreen.
Okay.
Like, think about it in terms of a business negotiation.
Okay.
You might downplay your interest in a particular deal to get a better price, or you might highlight your strengths in one area to distract from a weakness in another.
It's like playing poker.
It is.
Yeah.
You want to keep your cards close to your chest. Make your opponent think you have a stronger hand than you actually do.
Yeah, Sun Tzu even gives specific examples in the text, like holding out baits to entice the enemy, feigning disorder to make them overconfident, making them think you're far away when you're actually close.
Classic examples of psychological warfare.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder how much of what we see, in the news and politics, even in our own personal lives, is a form of this kind of Sun Tzu-style deception.
A little unsettling when you think about it.
It is. But it also shows just how relevant Sun Tzu's ideas still are today.
Totally.
His principles are so adaptable to so many different situations.
Absolutely.
And speaking of adaptability, Sun Tzu really emphasizes the importance of adjusting your plans based on the ever-changing circumstances.
Right. He's not a fan of rigid one-size-fits-all approaches.
So, like, how do you apply that in real life?
Well, he talks about this in relation to the concept of empty and full.
Empty and full.
Yeah, the idea is that you should attack where the enemy is weak and defend where you are strong.
I see.
Exploit vulnerabilities, maximize your own advantages.
Okay, so give me a concrete example.
Sure, imagine you're launching a new product and you do your research and you realize that your competitor is weak in a particular area. Maybe their customer service is terrible.
Okay.
That's an opportunity to attack their emptiness. Or let's say, your competitor is planning a big marketing push in a certain region. You could counter that by bolstering your own presence in that region, defending your fullness.
Okay, so it's about being strategic, choosing your battles wisely, knowing when to push and when to hold back.
Exactly. But it's not just about brute force. It's about understanding the terrain, the timing, the morale of your troops, the psychology of your opponent.
Right.
It's about seeing the whole picture and adapting your strategy accordingly.
And that's something that I think a lot of us struggle with, myself included.
Oh, for sure.
We get so focused on our own plans that we forget to take into account all these other factors that might be influencing the situation.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, we get tunnel vision, and that can be dangerous.
It can be. But Sun Tzu reminds us that flexibility is key. He even compares a skillful army to water,
Oh, yeah?
always flowing around obstacles, finding the path of least resistance.
I love that image.
Yeah.
It makes me think, how often do we just barrel through problems trying to force our way through instead of stepping back and considering a different approach?
All the time.
Maybe there's something to be said for being more like water, less rigid, more fluid in our thinking.
I think there is. And this idea of being like water ties in directly with Sun Tzu's emphasis on knowing the ground both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, he talks about the importance of understanding the terrain, the mountains and valleys, the rivers and marshes. He even says you should use local guides to help you navigate unfamiliar territory.
Right. It's about having this deep understanding of your environment. And not just the physical landscape, but also the cultural landscape, the political landscape, the social landscape.
It's about knowing the lay of the land, so to speak, in any situation you find yourself in.
Exactly.
But this is where things get really complex, though, because Sun Tzu also talks about the importance of creating advantageous terrain, like manipulating the environment to your benefit.
Yeah.
How do you even do that?
He gives examples of using fire to create chaos flooding areas to impede the enemy's movement, even strategically retreating to lure them into a trap.
So it's not just about accepting the terrain as it is. It's about being proactive, about shaping the environment to work in your favor.
It is. You're not just playing the game, you're designing the game board.
That's a really cool way to think about it. And that takes us to another fascinating aspect of the art of war, the importance of alliances.
Alliances.
Sun Tzu has a lot to say about this. He talks about choosing your allies wisely, knowing their strengths and weaknesses, understanding their motivations. He even warns against becoming too reliant on allies, because they can sometimes be more trouble than they're worth.
Yeah. It's like that saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But with allies, it's more like keep your allies close, but not so close that they become a liability.
Right, so it's not just about having allies, it's about
Yeah.
managing those relationships effectively.
Right.
What else does he say about alliances?
Well, he talks about the strategic use of alliances, using them to divide your enemies, create distractions, gain access to resources.
So it's all about leverage,
It is.
using your relationships to maximize your advantage in a conflict.
Exactly, and that ties in directly with Sun Tzu's overall philosophy of war. It's not just about brute force, it's about using every tool at your disposal to achieve victory.
Okay, we've talked a lot about the tactical side of things, but I think one of the most important takeaways from the art of war is this emphasis on the psychological aspects of conflict.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about armies and weapons. It's about minds and emotions.
It is. Warfare is as much a battle of minds as it is a battle of armies. He talks about the importance of morale both for your own troops and for the enemy's troops.
Yeah.
He says that a skillful general can rob an army of its spirit without even fighting.
Wow. So it's about breaking their will, making them doubt themselves, making them question whether they can actually win.
Exactly. And it works the other way around, too. If your own troops are demoralized, if they've lost faith in the cause, then even a military victory can feel like a defeat.
So it's not just about winning the battle, it's about winning the hearts and minds of the people involved.
Precisely. And that's something that applies to any conflict, whether it's on a battlefield or in a boardroom.
Yeah. Think about it. If your team is constantly stressed and burned out, they're not going to be able to perform at their best.
Right.
You need to keep their morale high if you want to achieve your goals.
So what other psychological tactics does Sun Tzu talk about?
Well, he also talks about the importance of knowing yourself, understanding your own strengths and weaknesses, and being aware of your own biases.
We all have blind spots.
We do. It's about having this clear-eyed assessment of your own capabilities.
Being honest with yourself about what you're good at and what you need help with.
Exactly. And of course, it's also about knowing your enemy, understanding their motivations, their fears, their vulnerabilities.
Getting inside their heads, anticipating their moves.
Right. It's like that saying, know thy enemy and know thyself, and in 100 battles you will never be defeated.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually a quote from Sun Tzu himself.
Really?
He famously says, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles.
It really underscores the importance of self-awareness and situational awareness. It does. And it reminds us that knowledge is power. The more we know about ourselves and our opponents, the better equipped we are to handle any conflict.
And that knowledge, as we discussed earlier, often comes from intelligence gathering, from having a network of spies who can provide you with that crucial information.
Right. Sun Tzu dedicates an entire chapter to the use of spies.
Yeah.
Outlining different types of spies and how to manage them effectively.
But again, we're not talking about literal espionage here.
No.
It's about being resourceful, finding creative ways to gather information and insights.
Exactly. Think about it. If you're starting a new business, you wouldn't just jump in blindly, would you?
Right.
You'd talk to potential customers, research your competitors, analyze market trends. That's all a form of intelligence gathering.
So it's about being proactive.
Yeah.
Seeking out information instead of just waiting for it to come to you.
Right. And it's about being discerning, about being critical of the information you receive and cultivating a network of trusted sources.
That's especially important in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
Oh, absolutely.
It's hard to know what to believe, what to trust.
It is. And that's why Sun Tzu's emphasis on critical thinking is so valuable.
Yeah.
He encourages us to question assumptions, to look for hidden agendas, and to be aware of those psychological dynamics at play in any conflict.
So it's not just about gathering information. It's about processing that information, analyzing it, and making sense of it.
Exactly. And that takes practice. It's a skill that needs to be honed over time.
We've covered a lot of ground in this section.
We have.
From deception and adaptability to alliances and the psychology of conflict. The art of war offers this wealth of wisdom that's still relevant today.
It does.
But I think there's one key area we haven't touched on yet, and that's the question of what it actually means to win.
Yeah.
Is it just about crushing your opponent, or is there something more to it?
I think Sun Tzu has a very different perspective on winning than most people might expect. Remember, his ultimate goal is to achieve victory without fighting to outmaneuver your opponent so thoroughly that they have no choice but to surrender.
That sounds ideal, but is it really possible? I mean, in the real world, conflict is messy, and people don't always act rationally.
That's true. But I think Sun Tzu's point is that we should always strive for the most elegant and efficient solution.
Okay.
And he also emphasizes the importance of choosing your battles wisely, knowing when to fight and when to hold back. Sometimes the best strategy is to avoid conflict altogether to find a way to achieve your goals without engaging in a head-to-head confrontation.
What about when conflict is unavoidable? How do you know when you've actually won?
Well, Sun Tzu stresses the importance of preserving your resources, both material and human. A Pyrrhic victory where you win the battle but lose everything in the process is no victory at all.
That's a really important point. It ties back to Sun Tzu's idea of the moral law, the importance of having your team aligned and believing in the mission. If your people are demoralized, if they've lost faith in the cause, then even a military victory can feel like a defeat.
It can.
It's like those companies that achieve this huge financial success but have a toxic work culture. Is that really winning?
I don't think so. True victory involves more than just achieving your objective.
Right.
It's about doing it in a way that preserves your integrity, your relationships, your long-term well-being.
So it's about more than just the bottom line.
Much more.
That makes me think about the idea of win-win situations where both sides walk away feeling like they've gained something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the ultimate goal, to find solutions that benefit everyone involved.
I think Sun Tzu would agree. He understood that true victory is not about domination, but about creating a more harmonious and balanced state of affairs.
This is giving me a lot to think about. I'm starting to see how the art of war is so much more than just this military treatise. It's like a guide to navigating the complexities of human interaction. Yeah, understanding the nature of conflict and cooperation.
Sun Tzu's insights are timeless and universal.
Yeah.
They can be applied to any situation where there's this struggle for power, resources, or influence.
So what have we learned so far? We've talked about deception, adaptability, the strategic use of alliances, the psychology of conflict, the true meaning of victory. But I think there's one crucial piece of the puzzle that we haven't fully explored yet, and that's the role of leadership.
Leadership.
What does Sun Tzu have to say about what it takes to be a truly great leader?
That's a great question. And it's something that we'll dive into in our next segment.
Stay tuned as we continue our exploration of the art of war. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into the art of war.
I'm ready.
We've unpacked some pretty intense strategies.
Yeah.
From like manipulating people's perceptions to the importance of good intel.
Yeah.
But now I want to hear what Sun Tzu has to say about leadership, because it feels like that's the thread that ties everything together.
It is. It's interesting that Sun Tzu doesn't actually have a chapter on leadership.
Oh, really?
But his whole philosophy is woven through with what it takes to be an effective leader.
So it's like leadership is the underlying current running through the whole text.
Exactly. When you start to piece together all of his ideas, a pretty clear picture emerges of the kind of leader he's talking about.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the inside scoop. What are some of those key qualities that Sun Tzu emphasizes in a leader?
Well, I think wisdom tops the list. A
Right.
wise leader isn't just someone with a high IQ.
Right.
They're able to accurately read the situation, anticipate potential problems before they even arise, and make decisions that consider the long game, not just the immediate win.
You can have all the brilliant tactics in the world, but if you don't have the wisdom to apply them at the right time and in the right way, you're going to end up shooting yourself in the foot.
Absolutely. And alongside wisdom, he places a huge emphasis on discipline,
Okay.
not just in terms of personal conduct, but also creating a disciplined environment where everyone knows their role, expectations are clear, and there's this sense of order amidst the chaos.
So it's about leading by example,
Totally.
walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Yeah,
If you're asking your team to be disciplined and focused, you better be modeling that behavior yourself.
100%. And that ties directly into another quality: sincerity.
Oh.
A leader who's genuine, who truly believes in the mission, is going to inspire a very different kind of followership than someone who's just putting on a show.
Yeah, people can sniff out a phony a mile away,
Oh, yeah.
especially in a leadership position.
Oh.
If your heart's not really in it, your team is going to feel that disconnect, and it's going to undermine their trust and motivation.
Yeah, and Sun Tzu got that. He understood human psychology. He knew that people are more likely to follow someone who's authentic, who's vulnerable, and who genuinely cares about their well-being.
Which brings us to another quality. He mentions benevolence.
Benevolence.
It sounds a little mushy for a military strategist.
It does.
But I guess what he's getting at is that a good leader isn't just about barking orders.
Yeah.
It's about looking out for your people,
Yeah.
protecting them from harm, even putting their needs ahead of your own sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Would you rather work for a boss who's demanding but also supportive, who has your back, or someone who only cares about the bottom line and sees you as expendable?
Easy choice. Give me the leader who's invested in my growth and well-being any day. It's not just about feeling appreciated. It's about knowing that you have someone in your corner who's going to fight for you and support you even when things get tough.
Exactly. That kind of loyalty and dedication is something you earn, and it comes from demonstrating those qualities of wisdom, discipline, sincerity, and benevolence.
Okay, so we got 4 down.
But there's one more:
Okay, hit me.
courage.
Courage. So we've got wisdom, discipline, sincerity, benevolence, Angie, courage. Man, Sun Tzu had high standards.
He did.
No wonder I'm so stressed. But seriously, when it comes to leadership, what kind of courage are we talking about?
It's not just about being fearless or reckless.
Okay.
It's about having the courage to make tough decisions even when they're unpopular. It's about standing up for what you believe in even when it's risky. It's about facing your fears and doing what needs to be done even when it's hard.
It's like that saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.
Exactly.
So basically, to be a good leader, I need to be wise, disciplined, sincere, benevolent, and courageous.
All of the above.
That's a tall order.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how Sun Tzu emphasizes that these qualities aren't something you're born with. They're something you develop through experience and self-reflection.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. He believed that leadership is a journey, not a destination. It's about constantly striving to become a better version of yourself, learning from your mistakes and growing from challenges.
So it's not just about having the right qualities. It's about cultivating those qualities, honing them over time.
It is. And that's where things get really interesting, because he doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more.
He goes on to talk about the importance of knowing your people, understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and motivating them to achieve their full potential.
It's like that saying, a leader is only as good as their team.
Right. He emphasizes the importance of clear communication, setting clear expectations, providing appropriate rewards and punishments.
So it's like creating a culture of accountability and excellence.
Yeah, where everyone's pulling in the same direction, working towards a common goal.
Creating a sense of shared purpose, making everyone feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves.
Exactly. And that's what separates a truly great leader from a mediocre one. It's about inspiring your followers to believe in themselves and in the mission to push beyond their limits and achieve things they never thought possible.
This has been incredibly insightful. We've explored some pretty powerful ideas about leadership, but what do you think is like the most important takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's the idea that leadership is not about control or domination. It's about empowerment.
Yeah.
It's about creating an environment where everyone can thrive, where their talents are recognized and valued, and where they're given the opportunity to grow and develop.
That's beautifully said. And it makes me think about Sun Tzu's emphasis on adaptability.
Yeah.
A good leader needs to be able to adjust their style and approach based on the situation, the needs of their team, and the challenges they're facing.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to leadership. It's about being flexible, creative, and willing to break from convention when necessary.
It's about being able to, like, read the room, so to speak, and adapt your leadership style to the needs of the moment.
Exactly. And that ties into his concept of knowing the ground,
Right.
which we discussed earlier. A good leader understands the terrain both literally and figuratively and is able to use it to their advantage. They're able to see the big picture, anticipate potential challenges, and adjust their strategy accordingly. And perhaps most importantly, they're able to make those tough decisions under pressure, even when the information is incomplete or the stakes are high.
So in a way, Sun Tzu is saying that leadership is about embracing uncertainty, about navigating the complexities of human interaction, and about finding a way to achieve your goals while also staying true to your values and taking care of your people.
That's a great summation. Sun Tzu's insights on leadership are both timeless and timely.
I agree.
They're as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
We've covered so much ground in this deep dive into the art of war.
We have.
We've talked about deception and adaptability alliances and the psychology of conflict and the true meaning of victory. But for me, the most valuable insights have been about leadership. It's clear that Sun Tzu believed that leadership is not just a skill, it's an art form. It requires a deep understanding of human nature, a commitment to continuous learning, and the courage to lead with wisdom, discipline, sincerity, benevolence, and courage.
Well said. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to all of you listening out there, we hope this deep dive is giving you some food for thought. As you navigate the battlefields of your own lives, remember Sun Tzu's wisdom and remember that leadership is not about winning at all costs. It's about inspiring, empowering, and uplifting those around you. Until next time, keep strategizing.